got this and you got that, and you gonna murder this one and murder that one. Talking all that bullshit. I'm gonna put it to you like this, yo.
This is for the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, you ain't gonna touch me, you not gonna do nothing, you are not above me. I bet you wish you was me, I know it, I know.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Only Friends podcast. I got Conrad sick, so he opted out, but I'm a fucking champion, so I, powered through.
Does that mean we're all getting sick as well?
Honestly, I don't know. How prone are you to sinus infections?
Pretty prone.
Then yeah, you're probably gonna get sick.
I feel like I already was.
It's
What are you gonna do?
I feel like such a baby.
No.
Like I skipped the gym yesterday and just like walked instead for my workouts. And I'm just like, is this what it's coming to? You get the sniffles and you just don't put in the work anymore.
This is decay.
But like, I don't know how to explain it. I have so much snot. When I was blowing my nose, I was getting lightheaded. You know, you blow with so much pressure and you're just like seeing stars afterwards. I was like, this just can't be the right state of mind to be picking up heavy things.
Do you find yourself having to blow your nose a lot when you're working out? Like I
almost
feel like,
never.
Really? Like I feel like I get stuffed up when I'm working out and then it becomes hard to breathe and then the workout becomes harder. Then I really have to just blow my nose and then it clears it all out and I'm like, breathe again.
The relief of like, I've always been the type when I get congested, it's the type of congestion that you just can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Like you get Mucinex or whatever, but like it doesn't run. I don't get like runny noses. I just get like bound up. But as I've gotten older, I think I've gotten like a little bit more of the mix where I can blow my nose, and now I sound like those old men who like have hankies.
I think we all know that sound.
And they sound like blowhorn. It's like that's me. Like I've just turned into the guy who has a snot towel.
Right.
You've become blowhorn, bro.
Sounds like the Jewel at 8 a.m.
Yeah,
8 a.m.
Really reminds me of my granddad. My granddad just like he was just forever blowing his nose, man.
Like I don't feel like pain. It just feel like pressure, like right here.
Oh yeah, you got it.
Just bing, bing,
Yeah.
bing.
Wait till tomorrow, buddy.
Well, I mean, I've had it for like a week-ish plus now.
Oh, so you're patient zero. Okay.
Is that
Thanks.
how it works?
Yeah.
Speaking of
Someone had to give it to me and Conrad.
Is that?
Yeah. Speaking of
But he didn't get
healthcare,
it.
I went to the doctor this morning.
Uh-huh.
I'm not pregnant.
Okay. What about the AIDS?
Well, we don't know. We got blood work. We got a checkup, and so lost a few pounds, which is good.
What do you get done on your blood work? Do you know?
I asked for a hormone thing.
Hormone panel.
Yeah, for full hormone panel. They're gonna do all the lipid tests and all that stuff.
So you had to get your blood taken. Like,
can I set the line on the tortoise?
She was a real vampire. There was a lot of valves she took out.
When you get the
I was gonna
hormonal,
pass out.
The testosterone.
Yeah.
When you get the hormonal
I'm
panel,
gonna set the line at 525.
I'll take under.
5. I'll take under.
Higher or lower?
525 is a lot.
No, it's not.
No,
For a 42-year-old man.
It's like
I'd
it's
say
probably
it's
what the
average.
average should be.
Really?
Yeah.
You think he's
525?
under average?
Yeah.
Why?
Oh, you're a little gooey.
I'm a little good. You haven't seen me lately. You haven't seen. Listen.
You're getting soft these days, Turtle.
4 or 5 months ago, I bet. How does it work? Like, the more you work out, and if you lose weight, your testosterone level will just go up naturally.
Some, yes, you can naturally increase it. Like fractions of a magnitude, like
Andre's
maybe 10, 15,
Andre's
20.
testosterone is nuts.
Yeah, he's like 1,000.
Yeah, that's insane.
when he was training jits like twice a day and going to the gym.
He's obviously
he was basically
naturally
fighting twice a day.
Right, but he's obviously naturally high. I mean, even whenever he gets sedentary, he's probably still in the 700-800 range.
I would assume it's the type of workout you do too. Like if you're doing like combat sports stuff, like you would think that would trigger some kind of hormonal like fight or flight thing.
I should really check what my stuff is.
That's going to be cortisol. But yeah, I mean, yeah, you could naturally raise it like having a more meat dense diet, training a lot more. But the thing is like however much physical strain you think you're exerting, it's always significantly less than what would actually be impactful on your overall hormonal system.
Right. It's got to be more. It's definitely more than it was
6 months ago.
6 months ago,
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
But you're like also
I
fighting
probably
against,
dropped 10 pounds,
right,
at
which
least,
is great.
and I've definitely gained muscle.
Yeah,
So
but you're like obviously still fighting against just
Decay.
pretty much.
Lando, you taking the
like,
under
you
or
act
the
like I
over?
did nothing for 10 years.
Higher, lower.
No, you got older though.
I did get older. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what you did for 10 years.
That's what I'm
Yes.
saying. You decayed
Oh,
more.
that decay.
Yeah.
I thought you meant just like
Not
like,
rotting.
Like, yeah, I thought you meant like just like couch rotting, bed
No,
rotting.
no. You're just like fighting against
Bravo
time.
rotting.
Bravo rotting.
And if you're unwilling to supplement, like it's just, you're on a fast track down to 150.
Higher, lower, 550.
525.
525 is a good line. 550, I would very confidently take under. Lower, sorry.
I'd be.
I'm gonna go higher for the
Do you
turtle.
think we could
You know
get?
what? I am
Wow.
too. I say over 525.
Do you think we could get? Fuck, I'm blanking now. What was the sports app we were shilling?
Underdog.
Do you think we can get Underdog to put Lamanna's testosterone up there for?
Listen,
Higher or
I'm
lower?
not gonna disclose it because I don't
The-
want.
the
I don't want to
Cali-
be known as low T, bro.
The Caliente pick of the day is
Spicy pepper.
is higher on Lamanna's.
1.5x your bet.
Let's hope the
That's right.
cholesterol is down. Let's just hope
What-
the cholesterol is down.
What was your cholesterol?
It was so
Is cholesterol
like
a myth?
over a year ago it was high.
But
And they put me on
high-
on a statin, a very low dose.
I would be
and then it
very-
went down, and then it went down.
Well, yeah,
so
you were on a statin, but
Yeah.
I would be very hesitant. What was do you know the numbers at all?
I don't remember, not off the top of my head.
Because like
it was high. It was like 230. It was
Yeah.
like 2.
I think your
50,
total
230,
cholesterol at 200
240.
is
It was-
considered baseline.
It was up there. Maybe it was even higher than that. It might have been 250.
okay,
Something like and the bad one or the one that's
LDL.
not LDL
Yeah.
was up pretty high. So
yeah.
it was
The
yeah.
big thing is that, and again, like do your own research. I'm not a doctor, but
Right.
the big thing is more so your triglycerides.
right. That was also really high.
Yeah, so that obviously you want to be conscientious of.
Mm-hmm.
They're finding less of a correlation, by my understanding, between LDL and heart disease and
Yeah.
total cholesterol and heart disease. So like my total cholesterol, I think it's somewhere in the like 170 to 180 range,
That's
Yeah.
good.
which is good. But my doctor actually wants me to get it up because there's a lot of
That's what she said.
there's a lot of like positive correlations getting closer to that 200 number with overall heart health and whatnot. But anyway, like
The turtle's
I
busy
digress.
laughing.
Real proud of his dad joke.
You gotta take what you can get.
Anyway, the whole point of that is that I personally am just like very hesitant to treat things with pharmaceuticals.
I was like, I don't want to get on it. It was like over like another 6 months, and
Yeah.
it didn't go down. So I was like, all right.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
I'm just saying based off of like, I'm not saying these numbers are arbitrary, but like a lot of it's just old science
and I
that
don't-
hasn't been updated.
Right, and I also don't look at it like it's a very, like I said, it's like the lowest dose you can pretty much
Yeah,
take
yeah,
of it,
yeah.
and it wasn't like oh I can eat whatever I want, I can do whatever I want now because I'm on this pill,
Right.
which I think a lot of people do. Like,
Yeah.
oh well, I can just keep eating the French fries because now I'm taking this pill, and that's not the way I look at it.
Like you can do whatever you want if you take Ozempic.
Yeah.
That's definitely not how it works. Although I mean, I don't know personally. I've never dabbled with it, but I heard that when you're on Ozempic, like you'll physically get sick if you try to consume too much.
Yeah, well, it makes you not hungry. It makes you just like almost like queasy, I think, at points.
Oh, that sounds healthy.
Yeah,
Is
it's not-
cholesterol a
and
myth,
they have
though?
no idea the long-term effects of it. They have no idea what, like, when you get on it, when you get off of it. And
Yeah.
it's great for people that have diabetes. Like, it really
Well,
is.
yeah.
Yeah,
of course.
that's what it should be used for. But then people are using it for reasons they shouldn't.
I think that 10 years from now, it'll be utilized.
Everybody's looking for a shortcut.
No, the opposite. I think 10 years from now, we'll see, there's a class for this drug. I can't remember what it's called, but basically I think like 10 years from now, we'll see this being utilized in a very powerful way. But currently it's just being used the same way like fat burning pills were
Right.
used a couple decades
Yeah,
ago.
exactly.
And-
Same as like diet
Hydroxycut
fads.
and
Yeah,
that
exactly.
kind of stuff.
Yeah, so what's happening is people are just like not really executing a normal healthy lifestyle alongside.
Everybody wants a shortcut, man.
Right. And the thing
they
is,
don't want to
like,
do the work.
the shortcuts are fine. It's no different than like taking juice. Like you can't just take juice and sit on the couch. It needs
Right.
to be
Glucagon, like
semaglutide.
peptide.
That's what they're called.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like I think that this class of like semaglutides will be like implemented into a healthy regimen, and you'll see a lot less of like the quote unquote Ozempic body where
Right, the head, where like it looks like a lollipop head.
yeah. Like what's his face from Superbad?
Oh yeah,
He's just like a
Jonah?
skeleton.
Jonah
Yeah, Jonah
Hill.
Hill. He looks like a skeleton right now.
yeah.
And there are a lot of people like this who just like lose a tremendous amount of weight, but they also lose like all of their body mass.
Yeah,
along
Michelle was
with it.
explaining to me like why the body looks like that. I don't remember the exact.
I would just assume it's because of this. The same thing if you starved yourself. Right?
Yeah.
Like it's effectively bordering on eating disorder.
Right. And there's certain like fats that don't like, so like your head kind of stays
Yeah.
a little
Right,
bit,
right,
and
right.
the rest of your body goes. That's why you look like a lollipop.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think that there's a positive usage for these, especially
sure.
for people who are like tremendously overweight.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter of like executing it with
Yeah.
a lifestyle change
Mm-hmm.
where it's going to be sustainable moving forward.
Yeah.
Did you guys see this? So if there wasn't already a concern for AI coming for everybody, Guapo, you're probably going to get replaced within the next 6 months.
Yeah, no.
Conrad in the next week.
For sure. I mean,
That's why he's not here today.
right. We're already working on it. It's like if he's just doing the intro,
Look
I'm
at
pretty
that.
sure
Oh,
we can
look
get.
at those puppies. They're not real.
They're not real.
They
This is
don't
all
exist.
AI.
Those puppies don't exist.
This whole
Look how
thread.
cute they are, but they're not real.
It's incredible. This whole thread is
That's amazing.
videos made through an AI prompt on this new open AI called Sora. And it's very similar to ChatGPT, except instead of outputting text, it outputs the videos that you want to create.
This drone footage is kind of crazy.
It's incredible.
Does this stuff frighten you guys or excite you?
Well, I mean, I feel bad for like people who actually have like gigs like doing this sort of thing. Like it
Yeah.
just seems like they're gonna lose a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't necessarily feel
Like
that.
how do you compete with this?
You don't.
It costs people, pennies on the dollar compared to
Right,
But that's so
all it
that's
does
so
is make
fantastic.
all it does is make the world more efficient, and then people can do other things, right?
Right. That's the way I
Yeah.
see this. Is like the barrier of entry is so low now to create content, right? And that's both a good and bad thing because you're gonna get a lot of shit thrown at the wall. But like, say we can just empower pigtails with this tool, right? And we say like we want this type of training video.
Right.
Now they don't have to find B-roll anymore.
Right.
Like this is such a powerful tool for generating B-roll on the fucking spot for free. Whereas like when we filmed To Be Determined, for example, the amount of time, money, and resource that we put into just getting B-roll, just to fill the gap in between the interviews and things like that, it's really expensive.
Yeah.
Imagine if you could just slash that budget now and you can just have it generated via AI. It's like, this has been happening in movies for decades anyway,
Right.
where they're using CGI and a bunch of other, like Postcards from Earth. It's impossible to know how much of that drone footage was real
Right.
and how much of it was just
exactly.
AI.
I watch these nature films and I'm like, is that real or is that like CGI?
It's
like,
so
they say
crisp.
it's real, but it's like it just
In 4K, it's just impossible to fucking
Right.
know, man.
This is the most terrifying shit of my entire life.
why this terrifies you?
I mean, yeah, people can use this for danger, like a lot of bad things.
I know,
Oh,
but that's everything, man. That's
We're
like,
gonna
you
get
can't-
deep fakes so hard.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, it's not even just that,
Man.
right? It's not even just us, but like call it like propaganda pieces, this, that, whatever. It's really fucked up.
That's really the biggest concern.
The biggest concern is not knowing what's real and what's false. Like you get like all of a sudden you see like the president come on and say something and it's not really him saying something,
Right.
Or other world leaders or the fear is like wars being started.
There's for
because of,
sure going
fake
to
stuff.
be these like technological wars where
Well, there's that too. Yeah.
like information wars. I hate to reference the show, but like info wars will legitimately be a big concern, I think, in the next 10 years if we don't have a way to validate things pretty efficiently. So I hope the counter to this is some sort of AI generation that can detect AI,
Right.
and you would think that would be pretty feasible.
Call it a fair play check, if you will.
Yeah, if you will. If you will, Landon. Yeah.
I will.
I kind of like that idea, but man, this this is just so fascinating to me because it's just gonna morph so much of how we consume.
Yeah.
Right? Think about how we scroll through reels and shit like that.
Right.
And how much energy and effort is going into people creating this content. Now we're just gonna be looking at shit. Like I watch snowboarding videos all the time. Now all of a sudden I'm just gonna get to see a bunch of shit that's not real at all.
Right.
That's just gonna be beautiful and the most outlandish stuff ever. And I'm just gonna be like, wow, what an amazing sport.
Yeah. I think it's natural for like humans to fear the unknown, right? This happens all the time. Every time there's like a technological advancement. So like even when like TV came out, they're like, oh, it's gonna rot your brain. It's gonna do this. It's gonna take people away from doing things. And
it did.
That's accurate.
Yeah, but it didn't.
The internet
really,
fucked us.
Right.
Real.
Right. No, but then it was like then the internet, and then it was like smartphones, and like we're all still here. We're all still surviving. The world is hopefully getting to be a better place.
We will certainly adapt.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
I agree with. It's
Adapt,
just
improvise, overcome.
Eventually, we have to merge with the technology, the singularity, if you will.
right. Do you guys know if Sora is a part of ChatGPT or if this is a separate, totally independent AI? I was of the impression it's independent.
I think it's a separate AI.
Yeah, I was of the impression it's independent. I wonder who the creators of this are. Because like ChatGPT ultimately ended up partnering with
You can find it.
someone. I'm not sure.
I mean, this is such a game changer. Imagine being a film writer and instead of like having to do storyboards and like trying to pitch an idea to like some big Hollywood producer, which normally would take a lot of money. Now it's like, oh, like I can just plug this shit in and give you like a very
ChatGPT's with Microsoft, right?
All right. So ChatGPT makers are the people that also created Sora.
Oh, okay. Do you know who they're partnered with? Somebody bought them out, I thought. I thought it was
Microsoft.
I thought it was Microsoft also, but I didn't want to speak out of pocket.
Yeah.
As
far as
I'm no idea.
I don't know exactly for sure, but that
Guapo,
seems
imagine like, pulling on that thread a little bit. Imagine actually just creating an entire feature film out of the prompts.
I don't think we're that far away. Look where we're at now. Like think about where we're going to be in literally a year or 2 years from now.
Right. Well, think about like how a script is written. It's so detailed and like almost visual in nature, the way it's described. Imagine you just start plugging in scenes from a script and it just plays it out for you.
So OpenAI's partner is Microsoft that created Sora.
Yeah. So to be
But
clear,
you would have spoken out of pocket, but you're right.
Right. So to be clear, Microsoft didn't create OpenAI, but they ultimately partnered with them in some sort of capacity.
And OpenAI created Sora.
Matt, if you enjoyed your Valentine's Day gift this year,
wait till
next year, whew,
that's what we're talking about, Guapo.
wait till you see what I create
It's
for
just gonna be you and me laying side by side, spooning on a beach somewhere.
you. Yeah, it's gonna be dope.
It's gonna be a beautiful thing. I can't wait.
AI.
Along with other beautiful things, Landon keeping his streak alive.
This guy.
Man ships another one. He's just
I'm the Jeremy Becker of online WSOP small buyer.
You are.
I'm
you own a
playing
computer
games,
though, so it's a little bit different.
Right. I own
He
a
probably
computer.
can't play online.
Champions keep playing until they get it right. Shout out to Billie Jean King. Yep. Just got to keep playing, put in the work.
Yeah.
I don't really know how that's a flex, not having a computer in 2022. 2024.
I don't know if it was a flex.
I mean,
it was just a statement.
It is, right?
Is it true?
I don't think he was like, I don't even own a computer.
I mean,
I think it was more
That's
like,
how it reads off.
I don't even own a computer.
Like the way that I see that kind of stance of like the report being like, I don't like the way I study is okay. We have the asset. The way I study is watching Poker Go FTs and watching GG Super Millions. I don't study. I don't have a solver. I've never even seen a solver. It's like, this is not the hill you want to die on, man.
I mean, look, here's the thing. I think it's really great marketing for the game. I think it's very important to.
I'm nothing against the guy, obviously.
No, I know, but I want to like pull on this a little bit because I think it's an interesting conversation.
He's a freestyler.
I really like the way that things have, let's say, matured within the information era of poker. It started hardcore. Like if you're not a solver nerd, you're fucked. And it was a lot of like similar to what we're seeing with AI now, where it was a lot of doomsers. And the problem with that was it was displacing such a massive portion of the community, right? Like all the way from top end pros down to casuals.
As in, like, if PO Solver came out, we would have had if it came out now, we would have had a podcast about how this is going to change the game.
Yes.
And how detrimental it could be with having answers from the
like
machine.
in 2015, 2016, when PO first hit the scene, and Sauce was like kind of the main proponent of like showing and demonstrating what theory was, how important it was, and everything else. It was very rigid in nature, right? And we didn't understand that much because most people in this industry don't come from a computing background. They don't come from a logic background.
Theory being theoretical principles?
Yeah, just like game theory
like
principles.
Toy game.
Yes, exactly. So from a toy game aspect, everybody should have been really excited because that's just the way that you were thinking anyway. It's just a means of illuminating it, right? Good players were always thinking in the ace, king, queen game scenario. They understood to some degree, even if they couldn't put language to it, what it meant to be at the top of value, what it meant to be at the bottom with a bluff, and what it meant to be somewhere in the middle to bluff catch. They internalized that, right? And everybody navigated it pretty well. Whenever it came to the point of being able to measure this now, and we also understood EV, like even pre-solvers.
People get their hands slapped enough time betting hands with equity and position getting jammed.
Not even just that. We literally understood EV. We knew the calculation for it, just only at the point of all in.
Ooh.
Right. So we understood all in EV, and that's how the first solvers were developed. Like I imagine, I would guess prior to PO being public, somebody as smart as Ike probably had his own like very
Dream Machine.
Well, maybe even pre-Dream Machine, but like I imagine like late 2000s. Early 2010s, a guy as intelligent as Ike with a computer science background was probably very easy or probably had a very easy time developing some sort of like rogue EV machine, right? Like Card Runners EV is a good example. This came out pre-solvers.
And
pretty sure this was like 2014, 2013
what did it do?
It calculated EV very similar to a solver. It was just like very rigid in what you could input export.
EV is in the sense of like just not only on rivers or at every point in the
I think at every point, but I think honestly it's been so long since I used it, I can't remember if it was comparing like range versus range or hand versus range, but it was just basically, it was a very simple EV calculator that was like really robust and kind of complex to use by comparison to the UI UX now.
Isn't it sort of similar to Poker Stove?
No, Stove was just an equity calculator.
Yeah.
But you could I guess similar in the sense that it was in for Stove you could compare hand versus range or range versus range.
Stove is just raw equity, like Equilab.
Yes. Yeah.
Where it's like
exactly.
you put an ace king versus a 25% range.
Right, but it was a big deal because it was the first. It was the first piece of tools that we had that compared more than just hand versus hand.
Right.
Like
Got it.
we could actually look at the equity of a range versus a range.
Wow, when that came out, everyone was like, "Holy shit, we're fucked."
People didn't use it. That was the beauty. Like that was what made you a top player, is that you knew what Stove was and you just kept it to yourself. You know what I mean? Like
if you speak, you're in big trouble.
You would run into a tournament spot and you'd be like, oh, okay, like I can figure out what the equity of your hand is versus his 3-bet range and whether or not you should. And that's what we would do.
This is when Ace King started going all in more.
Yeah, and it's like that's how we would figure out like raw EV, right? Because it would be like, oh, well, should you jam here? And we would figure out the equation for like fold equity based off of what we think their range is, what your true raw equity was whenever he called, and then we would determine like, is it winning or losing? And that was just, like I said, I used to do EV calcs by hand, like way back in the early 2000s. But again, it was only at the point of all in, so it wasn't worth a ton.
How helpful can it be?
It was helpful. I mean, it was helpful because you'd be able, this is before push fold charts, right? So you'd be able to figure out like what you believed to be the break even hand to shove.
Yeah, and you were doing these things and nobody else was doing them, so you had it gave you an edge.
Right.
Anytime you're doing something that nobody else is doing, it gives you an edge no matter what kind of
gives you a little bit of clarity
on it.
Yeah,
right,
a little clarity. But fast forward, whenever Sauce started promoting PO a little bit, kind of like digging in and being a lot more studious, it was a lot of fright because the collective that was kind of the early adopters, if you will, were specifically online guys and specifically like mid to high stakes guys, which were already good. You know what I mean? So
they were beating everyone and now they're getting better.
Yeah.
And everyone else doesn't have money for it.
So the fear was tremendous because it's displacing so much of the community, right? It's displacing guys as high up as
it's like the Citadel versus the sorry people.
Yeah. Yeah, because like it's displacing guys as high up on the food chain as like Ivy, right?
Where it's like, oh, Ivy's not going to beat the solver.
Exactly. It became very clear.
Ivy's the end boss against all of us.
Exactly. It became very clear very quickly.
There's a new god.
That this is more powerful than somebody as good as Ivy that we put on this pedestal as being the greatest of all time, right?
The barrier has been increased.
Right. So when that happens, imagine like if he feels even slightly displaced, imagine what the lowest guy on the totem pole feels, right? And that was the collective. So this became like very, very scary. And it turned into this scenario where it was like very doom and gloom because more information started coming out. You know, we had the first like theoretical book that came out. His name's escaping me now. For some reason, I think his name is Matt, but he's actually just a doctor, not just a doctor, but he's
the first book on what? I'm sorry.
Theory. I think it was advanced.
There's like applications of no limit hold'em.
Yes, exactly that. I think it was Matt Jonda. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, Jonda's actually like a PhD in medicine. But he was an avid poker player and understood game theory pretty well. And he wrote that first basic template for theoretical principles, how they apply. It was a fantastic book at its time. A little bit outdated now. We know a lot more. We have more vision over the areas where there's a little bit of oversight in that one. But even prior to that, like the book Mathematics of Poker got a lot of this right too. You know, they really understood the core principles of game theory. They just weren't able to extrapolate it out because they didn't have the tools, right? So they didn't have the vision over the entire game tree, but they understood the raw math that drives the game. The thing was, it didn't matter. You didn't need the raw math because nobody had it. Mm-hmm. So you're just operating in this realm of wits and wagers. And it's like, if you understand the raw math better than everybody else, then perhaps you can make more correct decisions, but it almost doesn't matter because it's such an assumptive process anyway. And everybody's so goddamn random in 2008.
I mean, still now.
Yeah, still now, but like way less so. There are a lot more guardrails now. Mm-hmm. The best you could really do by even understanding the underlying math is like, you know, the close spots. You could deduce logically what made more or less sense. Fast forward now to the solver era, and it was just panic across the board. Like everybody was terrified to play online for sure, because it's like, well, I'm just against killers, which now ironically is similar, but it's because we think they're using the tools, not that they actually know what the tools do.
I'm playing against God. I don't want to play against God.
Correct. And in the live realm, it actually became like a shame and blame type of community, because we wanted to push, like we wanted things to stay as they were. So it became a matter of like ostracizing people who fell in.
Nerds.
Yeah. And that's where I think like Polk really fit into the narrative, because he came and he sold this narrative of like GTO, right? And I don't want to say it was just like specifically him. Like GTO was the introduction of theory to poker, and it was the label that was used. But he and Joey
GTO is a way of life.
Yeah, they kind of promoted it in a like a fraternity type of way.
Yeah, Joey has a tank top for it.
Yeah, so they made it like they marketed it as a style, as a stylistic approach rather than just a comprehensive strategy. And a lot of people, especially young kids, really bought in because they recognized the guardrails that it provided, and they recognized the direction that it offered them, which was way better than guessing their way through like the rest of us had done for decades in the live realm.
Yeah, I have a friend that I came up with playing online, like small stakes, and I was very like not solver camp yet, but kind of getting there. And my friend Evan, shout out to Evan, he was like very big into the like upswing, and like started from there, and then started with the GTO, and then got Pio. Yeah, there he is. What a guy. And he like now is playing high stakes and is a very, very good poker player, but that's where his background and foundation came from.
Right.
Was that fundamental strategy of like the 1-3 hands, 2-4 hands, and then trying to figure it out.
Yeah. So, you know, this kind of became the progression from, I would say, like 2016 to maybe just after the pandemic, like 2020, 2021, somewhere around there. But then what happened is because there was such a big community shift where now the barrier of entry just became information, right? And GTO Wizard is a massive, massive tool in, I think, both helping create this barrier of entry, but also helping to really change the narrative moving forward as far as like what it means to be a good poker player, to be studied, et cetera, et cetera.
When did Wizard come out?
I think right after the pandemic.
That's when it was just only a database library.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It may have actually been during the pandemic. I don't recall, but somewhere around 2020. Yeah. Massive, massive growth in a few years. So basically now the barrier of entry is a lot higher, right? You can't just sit down and guess your way through and be good or not. Like too much of the community is at least looking at the database. They may not be able to derive much from it. They're not good data analysts, but they can like, you know, run through a pre-solved database and say, what was my hand supposed to do? And
Honestly,
get some sort of result.
That's kind of the big key idea here to me, is being good at data analytics. Like, you're able to look at a solve, look at a spot, look at button big blind, look at low jack button, and just take away all of the important concepts as to why the machine chooses the size that it does, or why it doesn't bet at all.
Right.
Like,
well, that's what's happening at the top level.
So hard to do.
Sure. And that's why I think it's like beautiful the way things have shifted, because now what's happened is the whole community has gotten on board to recognize that there's new information, the science has changed, there's actual out of the box strategies that they can start to execute, at least at a very simplistic level, like c-betting 25% with range. Like, that became a trend, right? There, all these trend lines kind of trickled down from the top to the bottom. And now where we find ourselves in 2024, which I think is a really healthy place for the community to be, is you have a lot of top end analysts that understand theory really well, that are able to utilize the tools very efficiently, and are able to communicate in a way that the general populace can derive some sort of value from, right? And then secondarily, they're also able to create and adjust trends as we learn more.
Kind of like the Rhonda Patrick for fitness, right? Like, they do all the tough work and then they bring it to like common people, and we're like, oh, like, that's nice.
Right. And it's a game of telephone, right? When the words come out of her mouth, they mean something very specific. Then that gets recommunicated through the person interviewing her.
The Huberman said,
which then gets distributed amongst the masses.
Like,
and
you
by
should
the time,
take these sort of vitamins. You should do this because of all these reasons. But then you're like, all I know is I should do this. I should take this.
Right.
And I don't know the reason why behind it.
Right. So by the time it gets down to the bottom level, they're maybe taking 1 of 7 of the vitamins, or they know that they should sauna, but they don't know how hot, how long, how often, what time. Like, they know they should cold plunge, but they don't know if it should be before or after workout,
or for 2 minutes, or
2 minutes, or 20 minutes, or like, so the information continually dilutes.
Like, c-betting quarter pot is vitamin D.
Right. Right.
Yeah, no, it's
right. So things like dilute from the top to the bottom. Like, we understand at a top level,
like, well, you can't just do that.
How powerful like it is to be able to range bet in certain spots, but why that also is the case. It's because of a specific oversight in the reaction. When the reaction changes, now we just range bet a lot less for quarter pot, and we have these other strategies that spurn off of it, right? Yeah. Point is that enough guardrails have been passed down from top to bottom that people have some level of comfort when they sit down. They understand that there's a handful of things that they should just do
or don't do.
Or
right?
don't
like,
do.
Don't just 4-bet pile some hand because you feel like it.
Right.
Like, instead, like,
well, maybe
have guardrail, right? And then you choose like call ace wheel.
Yeah.
Ace 5.
Yeah, they're out there yeeting it with ace 5.
Right. People hear about Landon like, oh, well, he just gets it in with ace 5. So now they're just out there just blasting away with ace 5 with no reason behind it. And
right.
Probably get you in some trouble.
The biggest point that I'm trying to make here with regard to Jeremy Becker and bringing it full circle is that now theory has like made its way all the way from top to bottom, and it's created this let's call border around what is reasonable within the framework of theory, right? But the thing is that it's a very zoomed out look. So all you see is the border if you're not at a top level, right? But when you go to the top level, you're so zoomed in that like you have this beautiful piece of artwork that the bottom level just can't see. Like, you're so deep into the nuance, and you can recognize every brush stroke, and you can see all this other stuff. And the fact of the matter is, you can zoom in even further, and like there's an underlying total other piece of artwork. Those like layered pieces of art where it's like you're looking through a window that's looking through a window that's looking through a window kind of thing. That's like the way that the theory is ultimately going to work.
On Konakova's story, she went to an art museum, like a French art museum, and I'm like, I don't know. It's just like painting with his lines. I'm like, I don't know what this means. And then she said another, I go, I also don't know what this means.
Right. Right. So it's like, for some people, all they see is the border. Right. And then other people see like a blurry image.
I'm like, it's blue and green. All right.
Right. So other people see like blurry colors, and then other people start to see a blurry image. And then, as you get up, you start to see more and more detail, and you get to see more and more nuance. But the thing is that because everybody sees the border, we just assume that the disparity between people who can use tools in a very nuanced way versus somebody like Jeremy Becker, or I would, assume Daniel Negreanu is another good example. They don't run their own stuff. They just kind of like learn through osmosis. They watch, they pick up trends. They're very much EQ over IQ type of players. And the way that they build out their strategy is almost through counters, right?
I've seen people do this, so my response should be
Exactly.
this. And don't get me wrong, there's
That's
a lot
really
of good. There's a lot of good that comes from that.
Sure.
It's like steel manning an argument, right? I think it's actually a really great way to approach strategy construction, or one half of strategy construction. Because most people who are good at the tools are good at building an aggressive strategy or an offensive strategy. They don't really spend too much time on the counters other than, is my thing exploiting this, right?
Sure.
Most people don't really dig in super deep into the how do I build a very robust counter strategy, because we like to simplify the counters a lot, because generally the counter is passive, right? Most of the counter, like the same way
Most of it's just trapping, right? It's like I'm going to protect my ranges, do check calls, like the raises don't come in as much as they're supposed to.
Well, the same as most of your strategies when you're the pre-flop aggressor in position will be betting. The majority of your strategy when you're the out of position defender will be calling, right? That's just simply the way that it goes. So the calling seems simpler, so we just like leave it alone to intuition, or we look at it, but we only look at it at a cursory level.
But the cursory level issue is the issue when it comes to trying to understand the baseline.
There's no issue. It's just different tiers, right? Like everybody is capable of taking this steps and steps further. There will be people at one tier that are just looking at a very generic sense from both sides of the coin. Like when in position with advantage, bet. When out of position as defender with certain hand classes, call. Right, and that's their strategy.
Sure,
and
it's more like life hacky than it is like actually getting somewhere.
Sure.
But sometimes there's going to be outliers that do very well, and then in the other instance of it all,
I would attest that there's a lot of outliers. Like there are a lot of guys like Jesse Lonis, guys like, I harp on D-Negs, but it's like I just feel very confident that he's probably never opened an actual solver himself to run stuff. He probably just like
outsources it.
Yeah, he outsources it, which is fine. But as somebody who's done both, there's a big loss in translation when somebody is just doing things for you, because you lose the exploration aspect. Like so much of running your own sims is saying, well, if this, then that.
A lot of curiosity.
Yeah, there's a lot of digging and probing. And it's like, okay, well, my intuition said that half pot was good here, but the solver's saying full pot is good here. Let me see what the EV comparisons are. Oh, okay, I don't lose that much, but
I lose strategically.
My strategy on the turn is vastly more complex if I come through the half pot node than through the full pot node, because now I have like 1.5 times the range that comes through, and I need to figure out how to juggle that. So I have a multi-size strategy on the next street. Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah,
you
like
know what I mean?
Not an HRC plug, but like when I've started becoming more curious and running my own spots for pre-flop and HRC, you can very quickly make some small tweaks and say, okay, the ranger's supposed to call in theory looks like 8s plus, ace, queen, whatever. Let me just give him 7s and 6s. Let me give him some suited stuff. Like, how does this change my jam? How does this change my RFI? And like, those are part of the adjustments you can make through looking at the tools. But how would you know what adjustment to make if you've never looked at a tool? You're just kind of guessing. And sometimes you're going to be right, but broken clocks are right twice a day.
But that's kind of the beauty of the current state of affairs, and why I say that this is the most healthy that I think the community's been in years. Because even just on this podcast set alone, we have a massive hierarchy where like we have someone like you that is balls deep in every sim that's ever existed.
Love solver.
You know what I mean? Like,
thanks for the imagery.
Because like you're not just you're not just a PO guy, right? Now you're an HRC guy as well. So you're
I thought that's what for Hillary Rodham Clinton.
You would. So you're just, you're examining everything from like all these varieties of MTT spots to cash spot, whatever. Like, you're covering all bases. Same thing with Hunt. Like you guys are just like really, really deep into the analytics. Then you have somebody like me that is, studying, but I'm studying very purposefully in the sense that everything is curated to the exact environment that I'm playing. Everything is very spot dependent, player dependent. I'm kind of painting ranges or adjusting ranges as I see fit.
Well, you have to, because there's 7 deuce game, there's stand-up game.
Exactly.
I
have carnival games, I'm playing multi-way, right? There's a lot of things that I have to account for that now I need to be kind of an intuitive scientist, right? It's a lot of hypothesizing and then testing.
Empirical data, if you will.
Yeah. And then you
in the streets.
Right. And then we start to come down a little bit where it's like, Brian, Conrad, and Guapo all have varying degrees of introduction into theory, right? They've all been given the same cursory information. They've all walked through the academy a bunch. They've gone through our training content. So they have the principles in place.
I see what you're saying.
They have the commonality of the foundation, right?
The level of like snide is kind of disappearing from one or the other. Like, like the hard exploit guy versus like the hard solve guy. Where like the hard solve guy is kind of like, you know what? Like maybe some of the solve stuff isn't that great, but some of the live stuff is great. Like some of these practical counters or... it's weird.
We only see the extremes at the extremes. We see the extremes on the solver side at like absolute nosebleed MTTs. And then we see the extremes of I don't believe that GTO bullshit at like 1-2 no limit. Because it doesn't apply to my game. You know what I mean? And then everything else in between,
my game.
Right. But then everything else in between, if you are winning in any sort of capacity, you've had some exposure. So even though Becker says like, I don't even own a computer, I've never looked at a solve.
He talks hands with people that do.
Right.
Right.
Look, I did Polk's podcast in 2019 or 2020 or something like that, where we went back and forth, and he admitted on air like I'd never looked at a solver. Like he literally said the words, "I've never looked at a solver." Right?
Iconic clip.
But and he was 4 years into having a training site at that point that was promoting solver outputs. The point isn't that he's an idiot for having never looked. That's not the takeaway at all. It's the exact opposite. It's that his mind works in such a way that he's able to build framework second-handedly off of people who have looked at solves and have pulled certain principles out. And then from there, you start to lay the bricks and mortar as you start to dig into the machine yourself, right? And that's the progression. So maybe Becker has never looked at a solve, and he's very successful because he's able to derive so much about the game second-handedly through observation, through listening to other people that have run these spots.
He's definitely doing things that the solver does because he knows that that's what you're supposed to do.
Exactly.
And that's,
I guess that's part of the
Right.
not part of the issue. I surmise is that getting to those conclusions, you can still be right without doing the work.
Right.
Like you watch a lot of Poker Go FT, you'll see someone like Foxen take an ace X off from the big blind and 3-bet a lot, or like take a king X offsuit combo, and then Becker sees like a king X off combo and goes, "Oh, like I've seen Foxen do this. Like this makes sense. I'm gonna 3-bet." And it's like, is it good? Maybe. Right? Did the chip leader open or did somebody else open? Like it's hard to know if someone's doing something under the guise of this is correct because I saw somebody do something similar in a spot I think is close once versus I know why this is good. I'm going to choose this combo and potentially mix
Exactly.
for it.
Right. So it's the foundational why that separates elite from good, but it's now a question of how much win rate is there actually behind knowing why versus what. Like, is knowing what just enough? And generally speaking, especially in the live realm, the answer is yes.
Come from someone who started a company called Solve for Why.
Right, because for me...
Solve for what?
For me...
Solve for what?
If you're thinking critically, you can now extrapolate off of things that you've never seen.
Right.
Like, I can get taken into a node that I've never been in my life before, but if I understand the core principles and I understand why things do what they do, I can at least come to some logical conclusion that we'll be right within some margin of error.
And I think it also knowing the why helps when when things get monkey wrenched, right? Like when you get thrown into a situation that you didn't run a solve for, you didn't you're just kind of in the weeds, and then you can kind of break it down from there, where okay, this is why this works in this situation, so I can brain solve in real time.
Well, you're just never going to have the perfect answers,
right?
So having the boundaries is going to help fade potentially roasting it. Like
knowing what is supposed to happen will already put you ahead of the field. Knowing why will put you ahead of the people who know what. Right. And it just becomes a matter of how much win rate is there available between the why and the what to make it worthwhile. And
I think it's a lot.
I think it's a lot too, but for most people, it's probably not necessary, right? Like if Jeremy Becker wants to be around for 20 years, he has to understand the why, and at some point he'll have to run solves. But if his goal is to play for 5 years, maybe make a bunch of money and then get out, understanding what could very well just be enough.
Well, yeah, you understand what, and then you win a few all-ins along the way, and you win a WPT for 7 figures, and like
exactly. Like a guy like Rampage is another good example. Like I'm not saying that he's theoretically illiterate or anything like that, but if I had to guess, He's probably replicating a lot of things that he's seen, or you know,
he talks with smart people that tell him things.
Exactly, but actually understanding the why to the point where he could curate lines himself, or he could come up with theories himself to test. Probably not happening, but he doesn't need to do that. That's not his job, right? He's not. I always say there's a big difference between a practitioner and a theorist, right? The practitioners are the ones that are out there putting in 2,000 hours on the felt every single year, and they're just executing a strategy that they've curated in the lab, right? And whether that strategy is complete or not doesn't really matter, because it's what they're armed with in the moment. So they're going to derive whatever EV that strategy can earn in their particular environment,
until they get to a point where it's like, is this still working? Is this not working?
Exactly. Then
what
they have to go
change?
right. Then they have to go visit a theorist and correct some things, and that's where you hire a coach or whatever, and like you look at some weak spots and you try to plug some holes. The theorist is constantly in the lab trying to curate new strategies, constantly looking at all the boundaries and saying, can we break this?
Right, trying to be ahead of the curve.
Exactly.
Like when people started using B10s, right? That was like the first time it's like, oh shit, what is this 10% pot? This can't be good.
Exactly.
And now it's like, oh no, it's pretty fucking good.
Right. And it's still tough to find.
Or like finding more leads, right? Finding the polar leads versus like the small leads, or finding
and that stuff, that nuance, it's not a lot of EV in the machine. Leading for quarter versus three quarters is it doesn't generate.
Well, versus in the machine, it's going to be like you're going to be fine doing whatever because the machine can play against itself. But like, how much EV do you actually gain by doing it in game?
Right.
Like maybe the overfold is massive,
and that's also unclear because maybe the overfold is massive, but now your value's hurt. Right, where maybe they would have made a mistake versus your value doing something else.
Like, I could have got more if I checked. Or
exactly, it's always this like catch-22 of you're still dealing with very imperfect humans, and you're attempting to manipulate them in your favor, you know, in real time. And you're always playing a one-of-one. Everything is a vacuum spot.
You're trying to make the like. You're trying to make the problems tough,
not a vacuum,
right?
The opposite of vacuum.
You're
spot.
asking. You're trying to find out where you can make the most money.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's not through the big lead, even though it's sick to do it. Right?
Right.
It's like, oh man, like this is a spot I can go like 2x pot.
Right.
And
So that's
bluff,
that's where
but
the
not value.
theorist meets the practitioner, right? And that's where the best in the world are able to find the exploits. So here's a great example. I played a multi-way hand yesterday that it's very rare to have such perfect information. Sorry, got real plugged up. It's very rare to have such perfect information, but multi-way spots will often offer them because there was an alternative path that a lot of other hands would have taken, right? So here's the scenario. I open to 300, playing 100, and I am 77,000 effective. Ralph 3-bets the cutoff off of 8K to 1K. Now that's obviously a very polar range. He only has 80 big blinds. And he doesn't need the 3-bet. Like this game can play calls very easily. He's not going to get squeezed, whatever. So he 3-bets to 1K.
You can sit at your game with 8K?
I mean, you sit with 10, but like you don't have to top off. So the button then,
they're looked down upon,
who is a fun player, cold calls. And now Oaken is in the small blind who has me covered. And he tanks and then calls. And it's like, well, I both know Oaken pretty well, and I know Ralph pretty well to know what that cold call range looks like. It's not wide, so it's not going to be things like, I shouldn't say it's not wide because it's still too wide, but my point is it's not going to be like bad hands, like King 8 suited.
It's wide good, like suited connected,
exactly.
pair dense.
Precisely.
Not the best pairs.
It's hands that could not win an 8K all in, but hands that can play really well, 750 big blinds effective if I come along.
Like Jack 10 suited,
exactly.
like Queen 10 suited, Queen Jack suited.
Suited broadways, pocket pairs less than 8s, and then like suited aces.
Ace Wills?
Well, I would say like suited aces, Ace 10 and below.
Okay, yeah.
Right? Like Ace Jack suited is probably just good enough to play an all-in pot. And then
Ace 9, Ace 8, you're probably in there a little bit maybe.
I would think like Ace 9 through Ace 3 or Ace 4 are probably just
for
like
him
always
are just
in.
going to be in.
Yeah, because like he probably just doesn't think that he knows the same about me. I'm not just going to go for it with 5s here.
Because you run into Ralph's and
exactly.
just get bladed.
Yeah, exactly. I'm
you'll
just
still continue wide, try to maybe, and then you're going to try to play with Oaken.
Exactly, because it becomes this proposition where now he's deep and I'm incentivized to call a lot wider in order to play a big pot versus him. So I have 2 8s. I'm really close here, right? I think that this is like good enough versus Ralph, but I decide that even though it's good enough versus Ralph, I'd rather just like play a bigger pot versus Oaken. So like I might even flat as high as 10s here. Not because they're not a hand that's worth squeezing. Of course they are. I just scoop the pot a lot. But bigger picture, like where all the money is derived from, winning this 4K now isn't that important. And getting Ralph's stack half the time because we're probably flipping a lot also isn't that important, right? Playing a 1,500 big blind pot versus Oaken is important.
The man wants more.
And it's like, if I don't think he ever has 10s or 9s or 8s, really because he's just happy to play an all-in pot with Ralph here, then I'm going to trap a little bit more often. So I call with 8s. It comes King 8, 7, rainbow.
Yummy.
Checks through 4 ways. Turn, offsuit 5. Checks to me. I bet 2/3 pot. Folds to Oaken. He calls. So now there's $9,000 in the pot. River is a king, pairing top pair. And the way I have him ranged after he check calls turn is he has 9-10 for an open ender. He has Jack 10 for a gut shot. He has an 8 some of the time. He has like 7-6.
What kings does he have?
Weak king 10.
I think he'll have king queen down to king 9 suited.
Okay.
I think he'll have king queen off some of the time. Probably not very often.
You block king 8, but he probably doesn't have king 8.
Never has king 8, never has king 7, never has king 5.
Right. So king 9 is the cutoff just because that's where that can
Even
make
king 9 is close.
Yeah,
right?
I think
king
he might
10
just fold
probably,
king
maybe
9.
king 10. King 10. Yeah. King
But the
9 mixes.
point is he never has a full house unless it's exactly 7s or 5s.
Okay, and you
right?
beat those.
Right. So I beat those. So I know that he has king X that will pay, and I know he has full houses that I've cooled off that are worse. So when it checks to me, I know 9-10 is just always going to auto fold. Jack 10 is always going to auto fold.
Right.
They're not good bluffs, right?
And he doesn't really have many hands that he's going to check raise bluff that are showdown value downs.
Correct.
Like he's not going to have 6-7 suited.
Correct. So when he checks to me, we have options, obviously. Now, if I've outlined that all the hands that will continue versus my bet are incredibly strong, they're all like trips plus, you would think then that the natural strategy, or at least what the practitioner would probably do, so if Becker's in this spot, for instance, perhaps he says something like, okay, every hand that he has is really strong, it's trips plus. So I'm going to bet a size that he'll check raise. But the issue with that thinking is he has to be very cautious of the fact that you have all the full houses. He has to know that you have king 8, king 7, king 5 suited. You have 8s and 7s and 5s. So he's not just going to take a hand like king 10 suited and check raise you because you also have king jack and king queen.
It's too thin.
It's too thin, right? So now you've lost massive amount of value versus that sort of hand.
It's too thin, and you can't support it as you don't have top.
So we should go big, real big.
Right, and he also probably doesn't have a lot of bluffs.
Yeah.
So check raising becomes a lot less appealing now whenever you run into blade, and
You can have queen jack.
you could get 3-bet bluffed. Queen jack?
You're like you can just have like
Can
jack
never
10.
have queen jack. I have bluffs, of course.
I'm saying you.
I'm saying he doesn't have bluffs. So check raising becomes a lot less appealing.
Yeah, because he
Right.
bets him on the turn probably.
Yeah. So it's like maybe he has exactly 7-6 as a potential bluff candidate. So whenever you run into top and you're devoid of bluffs yourself, it becomes a lot less appealing to put in a big check raise. So I'm not going to like half pot or 3/4 pot here. I'm a 3x pot.
Yeah, he's kind of not allowed to raise just by the way his construction looks. And
So
brain.
you go 27,000?
27,000 into 9K.
9?
Yeah. And he shoved.
Oh no.
Because he has exactly what you expected to have.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh no for Oaken?
Yeah.
Right.
Not oh no for Berkey.
It's like I beat him in.
Worse.
It's like he has exactly the hands that you think he's going to have. When I bet 27,000 there, I expect a snap fold or a decision between calling and jamming. And that's it.
It raises off the table.
Raises off the table. King X probably never folding. I just like over bluff.
How long did he tank before you jammed?
Not terribly long. Couple
Maybe.
minutes.
A couple minutes? That seems like a long time.
No.
Well,
Not
in
when you're
his-
facing 3x
Well,
pot.
like in his brain, like you have a hand like king queen.
For
and you
sure.
can still beat that.
For sure.
And then you might like bet mix 6. You're like, oh fuck.
For sure. I could also just have 5s. Right? And he doesn't want to lose out on that value.
I guess the issue is the risk reward is
It's
stinky.
very high. It's very high. But the whole point is like this is where theory meets practice, right? Because
You looked at a
theoretically,
machine and shown that he can't like in
Right.
spots like this he cannot raise.
right? Prior to examining these polarizing lines where you get the 3x pot, I would have just settled on pot here, maybe pot and a half. And
That's a lot of value.
yeah, but like all of his king X probably just calls, you know, and that's a lot of missed value because I could have got twice as much.
Right.
Until he starts folding King X, 300% is going to outperform 150 for sure, right? And it's like, yeah, maybe I still get stacks versus sevens, but maybe not if I bet pot and a half. Because maybe I go...
Because now you bet 18, he raises, you jam.
Sorry, maybe I go 12K, and now he goes 30K, and I shove for 80 or 75, and he might have to tank fold because what do I got? You know, now it's me, so I'm sure
You'll
he can look
king,
at
queen.
Yeah, I'm sure he can look at it and just say, like, this guy's turning a king into a bluff. I have to call. And that's fair, but you don't want to rely on that, right?
Your hand becomes much worse in value in this spot.
Exactly.
Because now you have to pray for something that you might not know exists. Kind of scary.
For him, you're saying.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like he has sevens and raises and gets piled on, and you're like, well, now I don't know if he's even bluffing with a king.
Exactly.
But if I fold this, now I'm folding everything.
Exactly.
And then he calls and he sees eights and he's like, I'm an idiot.
Right. Right. But he folds, he also feels the same.
But if he folds, he thinks
it's like, oh, I just never have a call.
He folds, like you like have like king queen some of the time, and then like you flip a queen on him. He's just like, I'm an idiot. Why did I just do that?
Right. Because that's the big issue. You never want to put yourself into a corner where your range is so capped that when you face the next aggressive action, if you fold, you're folding range.
It's almost like panic jam.
And that would be what was happening, right? Like maybe he could convince himself that he would like check raise call eights, and that justifies folding sevens. But like, you know, the point is still the point. You don't want to position yourself into having like nuts and then having to fold. And that's what a lot of people in the live realm do. They don't think they're not theorists. They're only practitioners, right? And the big fail point for the practitioners that, you know, maybe a guy like Becker or Negreanu or somebody like that will fall into is there will be certain lines that are just devoid of a portion of range, and that will cap them in such a way that either they're never folding or they're never calling.
Well, like
right?
example being
versus
like
certain action.
The hand he played versus Becker played versus Hunt, where he like led one big blind on the king X turn.
Right.
Which you just can't do that.
Yeah.
And it's like, why? Because it doesn't really benefit you.
Right.
And that's something that a theorist who've looked at ICM spots and looked at ICM posts would be like, yeah, this isn't allowed.
Right.
Versus someone that just knows that you can lead and play aggressive as chip leader, wants to start putting chips in the pot, but now you don't generate fold equity very often.
Right. So now when Hunt raises, Jeremy's in a position where like perhaps he just never has a fold.
And he thinks, oh, like Hunt raised a king and now I'm going to get him.
Yeah.
Or something because he had king X of spades. But
yeah.
Point being.
Right. But point being is like he's positioned himself to where his range is shifted into a way where it only takes one action. Or maybe it takes multiple actions, but none of those actions are fold. Right. And that's always problematic. Anytime that there is a bet and a raise or a check and a bet, some portion of the response has to be fold. Always. Always.
This is kind of like the left curve of the IQ chart meme where people say like, oh, like wait for it.
Right.
Like, wait for the good spot versus somebody.
Yeah.
Because at some point, a good spot can exist by people not realizing that their ranges are capped and overvaluing hand strength.
Yeah.
Where like the theorists don't like to call it the other side of like the Jedi right side of the curve is like, okay, his range is capped. I know that I can take this size because he's not supposed to do anything about it besides just call. But then he's going to jam his good hands because he has a full house. And what else is he going to do?
Yeah.
And now here we are.
Yeah. I think that's very well stated. So anyway, just to put a bow on this, like I thought it was a worthy discussion and a very fascinating one in the sense that there's this air of, I don't want to say arrogance or pompousness, but like of correctness within those who are capable of theory crafting and really understanding the game at a nuanced level. There's a level of judgment from them over the rest of the field that kind of comes off as arrogant of like, oh, holier than thou. These guys don't know. They don't see the game at a granular level the way that I do. And what I think an example of like Becker or D-Negs or a Rampage or a lot of others, Jesse Lonis is a good example. Even me to a very high degree. I think Chance is maybe another good example. I think what you can glean from that is that you don't need to see the game at a granular level to have a massive win rate. And that's a beautiful place for the community to be.
Right. You don't have to be perfect to win.
Right, because online is not that. Online requires a minimum barrier of entry of granular understanding of the game.
For what it's worth, they all kind of have.
Yes.
Just from being around long enough, talking to sharp people.
Right, but like look what it's done to the ecosystem. Right?
It's dying.
It's created that now in order to be at the top, it's not seeing the game granularly, it's using RTA, it's using cheating methodologies to gain an edge, right? And now at the bottom, you're just chum.
Yeah.
You know, it's an acquisition model to refill the bottom over and over and over again to chum the waters so that the people who can feed off of that bottom can then get zapped up by the people who are cheating, right? Like, and I hate to put it in a doom and gloom way. That's an over exaggeration. Obviously, the cheating mechanisms aren't taking all of the win rate out of the online pool. There are plenty of good players that are still winning, but they're winning largely because of weaker regs that exist based off of the recreationals, right? And if we see any of those disappear, online dies. Live is so much more healthy in its current state because though there is this top level of people who see the game incredibly granularly, they are shut out of private games. They are disinterested in the average stake that's available online, and they are disinterested in how slow live poker is. Mm-hmm. And that's all a beautiful thing.
Or they're
for
playing
people.
Triton events.
Right. And that's all a beautiful thing for the people who may not see the game at a granular level, but understand the broad strokes incredibly well. Mm-hmm. Those guys really get out and mash. A Darren Elias, you put him in an open field, he's just a killer, right? I don't know that he's going to be able to pass a GTO test at the end of the day. You give him a 25-point quiz, I don't know that he's getting... he'll pass, obviously, but I don't know that he's getting like a 90.
Amongst like high roller peers.
Well, it's not even that. It's just if you give him a letter grade, I don't know that like he's going to get an A on a 25-point quiz, right?
It's hard to get an A.
Of course, that's my point. So it's like, he may only see the broad strokes of the game, but that's so powerful, especially because you don't get distracted by the granularity to take away from the obvious exploits.
It's also worth potentially more too. It might just be worth being better at just like understanding the game for what the game is versus bogging yourself down.
That's what I'm saying.
Says.
He doesn't get caught up in the details. Instead, he's more granular about opponents, right? He can just look at somebody and say like, oh, they fall into this certain archetype. Therefore,
I have to play good theory.
My strategy adjusts ever so slightly left, right, or center. You know what I mean?
It's true,
and
man.
that's how a lot of people in the mid stakes cash games are crushing.
Exactly,
they're absolutely crushing. Playing like that.
I think that's a very fair statement where the...
Oh, sorry, I didn't say, but Oaken had sevens, yes.
I think like the theory boys, if you will think, okay, this guy missed a range bet. This guy's clearly a whale.
Right.
Where in reality, it's like, the guy's not a whale if he's winning and like has a good record, where he probably does a lot of good things right. Mm-hmm. Some of the things you don't want to replicate, but some of that good stuff might just be playing different strategies versus people where checking back isn't going to be that big of a deal versus someone that doesn't care, but versus a theorist, if you will, that is an issue. Because a theorist knows if you miss a range bet, you're mostly supposed to just check turn because the range is too strong. Right. But if someone just reckless abandon bets the turn because they check the flop and that's weak, now maybe checking back is better.
Right.
But like the theory, like straight, like, no, you can't do this is the thing that I think that they're talking about when Daniel's like, oh, like when like allowed to versus not allowed to.
Right.
Slave to the sim type thing.
People use their brains. You're still allowed to use your brain playing poker.
Right, for sure.
I guess that's the ribbon on this little present that we have is that I think brain solving and freestyling has risen to prominence again in a way that we haven't seen since pre-solves, and that's a really exciting time for me.
I'm here for it.
Because now we're not translating mechanics into theoretical whys necessarily, but instead we're translating theoretical whys into logical ways to think about the game. And that was always the impetus behind Solve for Why. It was always meant to be a way to critically think about a puzzle that's unsolvable by the human observation, by the human brain, right? Mm-hmm. So let's put the pieces together in some sort of organized way that can allow us to outmaneuver somebody who's just randomly throwing pieces down on the table. And that's really what it is to brain solve, to freestyle. It's to take a lot of fundamentals and principles that you understand from game theory and then just say like, okay, I'm going to outthink these people. And it's beautiful when it happens. Like, it's frustrating when it fails, but a lot of times that's just kind of variance at play, and you have to live with the outcomes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've just got to be able to do both and not necessarily have... Some things are just completely terrible. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, look at ICM stuff, look at like tournaments, like look at like call it baseline versus someone that knows what's going on. You can very clearly make some mistakes that give the other person EV.
Yeah.
Because now you're playing a game of like my theoretical EV loss versus yours is going to be higher. So I need to try to mitigate that by playing better. versus other people. Like, and part of it, I think my issue is the ego, where sometimes it's like, I think this person's not as good as this person, so I'm going to do something differently, and it's completely out of left field. Where it's like, this is a really big deviation. You have to be very sure that you're right or not right. That when they're wrong, it's like, oh man, like I was just wrong. Like, is what it is. Where knowing the background is going to help you be able to make a better decision.
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, when you're shifting into an exploit, it's not very rarely do you jump 2 buckets.
Like, I'm not trying to exploit Chidwick, man. You just can't.
Right?
Well, but like the live guys.
Nobody's trying to exploit Chidwick. Like that's a
I don't think
false equivalency.
I mean, Daniel's trying to exploit Jesse by folding 9.
Jesse's not fucking Chidwick, man.
No, but the point still stands.
No, it does not. Those are false equivalencies. You're talking about one of the 10 greatest players of all time.
And Chidwick.
Okay, like they're just not the same. But yeah, like the point is that when you exploit, you don't generally jump multiple buckets. So like the point is that like whenever you have a hand like 9s that pure continues in some sort of capacity, it's very rarely going to shift from a pure continue to a pure fold. Like the shift would be that it shifts from a pure call to like a mix of something, right? Like that'll be how you exploit. Like sometimes it'll mix raise, or maybe sometimes it'll mix fold depending on his tendencies. But it's never just going to be like a high five, slam dunk. I know this is winning a bunch of money by calling, but because it's you, I just always fold. The only time that you can get that extreme is when you're against that extreme of a character, which is usually only going to be an old man coffee type.
Well, that was Daniel's argument, was that
it wasn't. It was that he was going to barrel.
This character type will put money in on the turn every time, so I can't call anymore.
But that's not. But that's where it falls apart, because yes, you not only can you call, but now you get to call more on future streets. Because if he's just blindly barreling, you just get to make a whole bunch more money with weaker hands than they would if he was not blindly barreling, right? And then also, the other aspect of your assumptions don't always come true. The barrels don't always follow.
Or he just has a hand that shouldn't exist.
Exactly. So again, I don't want to make this about this hand. That's not the point. But the bigger point is like whenever you're theoretically sound, the deviations that you make aren't going to be multiple
octaves in the other direction.
I went with octaves. This is music.
I mean, it can be music.
Sure.
To Chewy, it is.
I would say it's not like multiple standard deviations away from the norm, right? Like if you think about variance as being like the outliers are 3 standard deviations from the norm, like your in-game strategy adjustments aren't going to be 3 standard deviations left or right.
They shouldn't be,
right? It's too extreme. Because now there's way too much relying on your being correct.
It's so funny because the only time this ever changes for not everyone, but mostly everyone, is the main event.
Yeah, but that's wrong. We know that's wrong now. Like we just know that that's absolutely incorrect.
You think so?
Yes. I think that like there are some fringe cases where you can make the arguments of like, we can always draw up the scenario where folding kings preflop on day 1 is good.
Well, like Q,
and that is like the 3 standard deviation play.
Good example, like Q, the deuces hand I played last year in the main.
I don't know what it is.
When I turned a
couple
deuce.
Years ago.
No, it was last year.
This past year?
Yeah, it was last year when I left myself 5K behind and then got jammed on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where a guy bets pot, like I have deuces on like 8-8 or I want to say it's like 10-10-8, turn deuce, river, brick, flush comes in on or flush bricks on the end. And it goes like check, multi-way. He goes pot. I call. River, he bets. I almost jam, leaving 5K behind, and then get piled on. Where you and I have had a back and forth about this. You're like, you probably just have to call the river.
I just wouldn't leave the chip behind ever with a hand that strong.
But you wouldn't have jammed river with a hand that strong.
I probably would have. I mean, well, if I didn't, I would give myself a different decision. But point stands that, like, yeah, I don't think that.
Every time I play a hand in the main and then something goes wrong, it's always like, it's the main event, you could have done something different.
Well, because your butt in the seat is worth a whole fuck ton of money. Like there's ICM to a good player that doesn't exist for other people, right? Because your win rate is so much higher than the average player.
Future game of the main event next year.
Right, but that said, you can only control so much.
Where's the furthest you've made it into the main event?
3 hours.
Day 2.
Yeah.
Day 2, and I bagged less than a blind because I jammed
like,
all in minus
I
1.
remember
Landon on day 3.
I backed like chip lead.
Like Landon, like mid to late day 3, where like people clam up and the money and you have like a POW. You in that seat is worth so much because you will just destroy people.
Right.
Because of how people decide to play.
Right. So to that degree, it is just worth finding a way to get there.
Right.
And then accumulate chips starting then.
You don't need to accumulate all the chips in the first day.
Where like for me, it's the opposite.
It's not about how you start, it's how you finish.
Right. Like for me, it's the opposite. I'm going to be way more dangerous day 1 through 4 than I will be 5 through 9.
Listen, I'll teach you how to tortoise it up for the first 2 days, and then you'll be on day 3, and then just get all your chips.
That just mean max late register the main?
Actually, it's probably not a bad idea.
For a good tournament player, I think it's a great idea. I think cash players are the ones that should be there from hand 1 more so because we get so much of our value early in the event when everybody's playing deep and not very good.
Speaking of the World Series,
but I feel like everyone gets value from people not playing very good deep.
Yeah, but again, I'm less valuable on day 5 than you.
Just because of
you just know more.
Just knowing 30 big blind poker.
You just understand mid-stake or mid-stack poker better than I do. You understand ICM better than I do.
Sure.
Like I'm still going to be in accumulation mode on day 5 and 6, where like you're going to be in navigation mode.
Navigate. You have to navigate or dominate.
Yeah, I can only do the latter, and it's not very good. It's pretty ugly. But yeah, the schedule was dropped today.
It
as
is.
we
It's
anticipated.
Out. Let's go.
99 bracelet events.
That's it.
The main event.
How many of them do you think I can win?
Don't do this.
I'm excited, man.
Well, there's apparently 13 that you can play.
Hey, listen, I'm gonna be playing. I'm playing all the 3Ks.
Okay.
No, I'm not. But I am playing all the 1500s that have a name.
Okay.
You know, the Millie, the monster stack.
Sure.
What else we got in there? The mystery bounties.
Mystery bounties.
There's a couple of them. Not the 10K. I'm not gonna play the 10K one.
I'm only gonna play the 10K.
You're gonna play. You're gonna fire the 1K.
I've never played the 1K.
You haven't?
No.
Not really.
For all the reasons I stated yesterday, I can't do it.
Get in there. You know they added 100 tables, Burke.
That is great news.
100
do
tables.
They have 100 more dealers though?
Well, you know, if they come to the dealer academy, that's all for why.
That is true.
They could hire a few more.
25K heads up is early this year.
You are the worst at this. You know?
I love it, man.
You can just wait till we plug the fucking dealer academy, man. Jesus Christ. Yes, the 25K is heads up, or the heads up is early. We don't care. You're gonna play. Congratulations.
I care.
Big schedule. I actually think that this is pretty similar to last year. Not a ton changed.
Yeah, it is very similar.
Still got the 3K Turbo 6 Max. I'm done lobbying for a faster structure. I'm here for it.
Wait, are you? Because it's not good.
I'm happy to play turbos now. I don't give a fuck. Fuck tournaments. Fuck all you tournament players. Make everything 20-minute levels. I'm in.
This is how they get you, yeah.
Yeah, I was about to ask this. So, we had this lengthy discussion yesterday about like the small stakes stuff. They came out with 13 events under 1K this year. They are
only 2 that are like really small. So there's the Colossus and the Gladiator. Gladiator's 300, Colossus is 400. Yeah. Everything else is 500 or above.
Right. We have different qualifications. Very small, but sure.
Of course we do. We want to compare bank accounts.
Two small events, as Brian mentioned, that should be massive fields. My question that we didn't really touch on yesterday that I'm interested is, you made a very strong case for why the sub 1K buy-in should be there. It's more inclusive. It does bring in a lot of recreationals that otherwise might not play an event, et cetera, et cetera. Do you think that it is desirable to that same group to play events that only have turbo structures? Every event sub 1K is 30-40.
No.
Or 20-30.
No, that's definitely not true.
Okay, which one?
Definitely the Poker News one.
What one's that? That's a new one.
That's I think it's the 600 Deep Stack Championship. Sponsored by Poker News.
Okay, so that actually existed before. They just have a sponsor.
I believe it is like 40 or 50,000 starting stack, 40-minute levels. Maybe it goes to 60-minute levels on day 2. I'm not sure, but it's definitely at least 40-minute levels.
Is this early or late in the schedule?
I think it's halfway through.
Okay.
And then there's the 600 Ultra Stack, which I believe is 40.
Okay, yeah.
levels.
The 40, yeah, you're right. So the Deep Stack Championship is a 40-60 structure, which
I think the Colossus is also a 40-minute structure. Could be wrong.
I'm pretty positive that one's 30-40.
Yeah, let's find out here.
Gladiators is 30-40. Let's see what else.
Colossus is 40-minute levels.
Okay.
Yeah.
Straight through, right?
Straight through, yeah.
Okay. I mean, not turbo-y, but also not, you don't get the 60-minute levels that you get at the 1K.
Right, exactly. And like there you go, Berk. You said you want to earn your way into the, like you got to earn your way into the arena. Well, you got to earn your way into the really good structures.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
And I think that's okay. Yeah. No, oh, for sure. I don't think you can have these smaller buy-in, massive fields, and then just have really good structures. The logistics doesn't allow for it.
No. But
right? And I think people are okay with that.
Well, there's the ability to increase the time on later days. On day 3, day 4, you could start playing 60-minute levels.
Like 30.
Yeah, and I think some of them do that, don't they?
I'm also not advocating for this. I think if you're going to run small buy-ins, they should be the shittiest structures. But my question is, if you're going to play the highest rake percentage-wise and get the worst structure, is that something that collective is very happy with?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. But I think also you don't have to play it, right? So like it's there as an option, and you can play it or you could not, or you could go play a different event at a different venue that maybe has a better structure and a lower rakes, like a lower
And I
rake.
guess that was largely my point yesterday. Was that the rest of the city is running 40-60 minute levels at the same buy-in point. Why don't we just allow them to do that? Why does it have to be a bracelet event with a worse structure trying to run 25,000 people through?
I don't know, but I like that the people have the option that they want to do that, and those both the options existed, and people chose to come to the World Series. So over these other events,
I'd say they both benefit.
Every place benefited, right? But I think that the fact that the World Series events are always the largest events, and they're always, and I think that spills over into the other events, right? So like I think like if they don't have these small structure or these small events, the Colossus, the Gladiator, even the Mystery 1K, or some of these things that are small buy-ins, massive fields, then I think the other fields around town suffer as well.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I think that the World Series gets them there, and then the other places get them to stay and play a little bit more.
That's interesting to me, because I would suspect that between the major venues like Wynn, Venetian, Aria, and some offshoots like Golden Nugget, Orleans, etc., I would imagine somebody who plays an ABI of like 400 could probably play like 50 to 100 events throughout the summer without going to the World Series.
Right, but you're talking about the average. I'm talking about like the everyday man.
But you're saying like you're basically saying like if they play an ABI of 400 but they can't play a World Series event, then they'd be less inclined to come out here for the summer and splash.
Yeah, I'm saying to people that are going to play like just a handful.
They would never look at like the Venetian Deep Stack schedule and just be like, I'm there for that.
Right. Like people like I'm going to come out and I'm going to play 4 events or something like then yes, they're gonna look and they're gonna be like, oh well, I'm definitely playing that Colossus. Right, or I'm definitely playing.
And you're saying that off of that, then they'll say, "Oh, I'll play 4 more events."
Yeah, or I'll play. Yeah, or they run deep and they have some money and now they spread it out among they're all of a sudden not going to start playing 3Ks, right? So now they go around to other places around town, and I mean some will, right? I mean, listen, as a degen myself, I understand you can degen it out, right? But like
he'd like to say something of a gambler himself.
Yeah, but I think that that allows people to come in. A lot of people cash these things, and now they have a little bit more extra money, and then they spread that out around town.
Yeah, I think that's a fair argument.
Yeah.
I mean, it's abundantly clear that
WSOP saturated, and then they just like go, they balkanize.
It is pretty clear that like
go fire.
When they started to dip their toes into that lower stake arena, they didn't hurt the other venues.
Right.
Like I think the assumption
other
was
fields do well, even though WSOP.
I think the assumption was that they were going to steal traffic from like Wynn and Venetian and stuff.
A rising tide lifts all boats, Berk.
That just didn't seem to happen, and I don't know. I mean, a lot of recs I think are very much of my vantage point, where they're just like, I would prefer a good experience.
In the defense of the people that think that way, I will say that WSOP puts out their schedule first, and then everyone else follows suits.
Right. Yeah.
So they
which
see,
is smart.
Yeah, of course, it's great because they see that the low price point buy-ins are on these dates, so they're going to wait till the WSOP ends theirs to then start theirs.
Right.
I
which
mean,
makes a lot of sense.
Maybe if I were some of these venues, I would just like have a later start time for a comparable price point.
And they might do that too. Right. It's like, okay, a bunch of people, thousands of people are going to bust this event. You know what? Let's just start the next one. Let's start a similar buy-in at like 3:00. That's what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You
Exactly.
probably just want to wait though, right? Until people can't re-enter the smaller field ones. Like if the Gladiator is a 4-day one, you just run it on the 5th day. So now that everyone that can't.
Well, I think they do a good job of like, if you bag one of those earlier days, then you can come play our venue and still have overlap and play both. Right? You could bag both.
Have something to do on your days off.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe you just run dailies for that.
I mean, Win Dailies did really well. They were getting like 100K to first. I think
100K to first.
They were doing like a daily 1K.
There were some big ones. Yeah. The 1K was like 80K plus to first a lot. Some of those are sick, man. It's like, what, a couple months away now?
I mean, it'll be here before you know it, man.
Way
Scoop,
too
I know.
and then back.
Oh, man.
I'm
very excited.
I'm looking to see.
Very excited.
I will say that it looks like they did a pretty good job with the rake. So the rake on 300s and 400s is 18 and 17 and a half respectively.
Okay. Is that good?
It's pretty close to industry standard, I think.
Yeah. That's like if you like, but like it's funny because you say go to other places, but like if you go to like, you look at like a Golden Nugget or an Orleans or like some of these places, you're looking at like 20-25% rate.
Are you though?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, those places should obviously be avoided, but I don't think that's industry standard. I don't think like if you go to Win, you're looking at 20% on a 400.
Yeah, I would say Win no. Right. Win no, and I'm not sure about
off
Venetian.
the strip events, sure.
Win has very good a rake, I believe. It's probably one of the best. From what I remember looking back at like for those lower buy-ins, their rake structure is really good. Like I said, I'm not sure about Venetian, but I know some of like the other, off places definitely have higher rake.
Yeah, of course. But with that, you get a much softer field. I think that it's worth mentioning. They did have a couple new events. This 5K opener is newish. It used to be like a 5K turbo that they would do every now and again, but now it's a bounty-esque type. It's sort of like what they used to do in San Jose, Bay 101, the Shooting Star. So it's actually a championship reunion event, which is an 8-handed 5K turbo. No, it's not a turbo. Sorry, it's 40/60. So
when is this event?
May 28th. So it's a 5K freeze out, 8-handed. And if you knock out a main event champion, you receive an entry into the 2024 main event. So basically a 10K bounty, which is pretty nice in a 5K buy-in. I would imagine they're going to try to do what they did at Bay 101, where they put a bounty at every table. I think that's probably the only fair way to do it. But I also feel like they probably should expect more than 500 runners or 400 runners, I guess. I mean, how many main event champs can they get? It's got to be under 50.
Way under 50.
Yeah, so
some of them aren't alive anymore.
Right, some of them aren't alive. There are multiple winners.
Right.
So maybe they get 30 tables of 8.
If they're lucky, they get 30, I think.
Right, so now you're looking at like 320 entries. I think it'll be bigger than that.
Well, actually, maybe.
That's a freeze out. Maybe not.
30 is good. They should be able to get 30. I mean,
I'm thinking that they'll get more players than that.
Yeah, right. Oh, okay. So you're saying that there won't be one at every table.
Correct.
Yeah.
But maybe a lot of.
But I'm saying they're gonna get. They'll get 35. 36.
Do you think it'll be capped at having one at every table, or do you think they'll just open tables that don't have a bounty, and then just like leave it up to chance? It doesn't really seem like it.
They don't have
clarified.
the structure sheets out yet.
I know that was the other thing I was looking at is what is the restart time? Because they still have the 10 a.m. start time, which concerns me a little bit.
10 a.m. start time for what?
A lot of the
events.
Well, specifically like those shit show events. Yeah. But I wonder like what that restart time is going to look like, because maybe with the additional tables and the faster day one structures, maybe they do bag at midnight and you turn around at 10 a.m. But even that's still pretty fast.
How was your summer volume playing in Bobby's over the summer?
I played
Good, right?
every day.
Yeah.
I don't think I took a
That's
single
nice.
day off.
Nice.
I played like 7 events. I
It was
think.
like that. That's when we were doing podcasts. We go to the WSOP, you go to Bellagio.
Yeah, I never got the main game, so I was able to just like do the pod at 10 and
Second
then
game.
go to the second game as soon as I finished. But yeah, I got my optimism cap on today, as Hunt
There you go.
suggested.
Yeah.
So a little excited. There is one misprint. They listed the 3K 6-handed no limit as a turbo, but they again didn't label it as a turbo in the structure. I don't know how they oversight that every single year, but it's a 30-minute structure. They also said that there's another 6-handed 3K tournament on June 8th, which is event number 25, and that has the great structure, 60 minutes, but unfortunately it's limit.
Is that
It was
confirmed?
it was a misprint.
Yeah.
A lot of people on Twitter are confirming that. So all the limit players out there, you get the good structure.
They can't keep getting away with this.
It's incredible, man. I appreciate. I'm more likely to play the
you're gonna
6-max
You're
turbo.
gonna super max it.
There you
It's
go.
only a 2-day event.
Well, yeah, you're gonna do what you did last time.
Oh yeah, I did cash that one.
You super maxed
I
it.
super
You
maxed it.
super maxed triplet.
That's right. I did. I ran it up real nice.
45 minutes later.
Yeah. and
I
I
have
got
my ticket, please.
I got fucked good on day 2. I had like 5 blinds and somehow I navigated like 100 pay jumps. That's exaggerated, but
Out of all these events, excluding the main, is there one that jumps out?
10K 6 the 10K mystery bounty.
Yep.
Secret bounty?
Excites me.
I don't think it's Secret Bounty
No,
anymore.
I know,
I
just
think
fucking
they
around.
changed it just straight to a mystery bounty. It's going to be.
Well, I think it was a mystery bounty last year, but they turned it into a secret bounty.
Well, it was called Secret Bounty.
Oh, okay. That's ironic considering the way that
Right.
the structure actually did.
The structure
play out.
was very secret.
very
Yeah.
secret.
People didn't know if they were
there's-
in the bounty prize
oh.
pool or not.
This is actually a new event, which is pretty cool. It's a high roller seniors event, 5K seniors.
I
event.
love that.
Yeah.
I know that Salzburg was like kind of requesting something like that, and I think it's well overdue based
Right.
off the turnout for the seniors
Yeah.
events in the past few years. I think that'll be great. I really think my volume is going to be low. There's a lot of events on here that I think are fantastic that I just like old me would have loved, like the 2500 freeze out. That's always a favorite of mine. All the 6 maxes, those are fantastic, but
Like the Millionaire Maker
don't see
and the
it
Monster
happening.
Stack, those are my favorites. I think
I haven't played those in so long.
They're so good. They're huge fields and they're really good structures, right? So like they're 60-minute levels.
Yeah.
You start with the Monster. I think the Millie, you start with 25K in chips. The Monster, you start with double that, right? So
those are events. Those are like marquee events that, like, when you're talking about the lower.
That's where they
price,
go.
Like those are the ones that have 10 of those.
Let's have more of those.
Yeah.
Have more milli makers.
Like, let's just have more of those.
Yeah.
And I understand.
I'm okay with that.
I understand the desire to do the same thing at a $300 price point.
there's only one $300 tournament, Berk. One.
Well, there's only
But then
one
there's the 500 freeze
and then
out.
there's 2 500s.
and then there's the 800 turbo bounty.
Yeah, like, look, the Salute for Warriors.
There's 13 events under 1K.
The Salute to Warriors and the 500 freeze out are not going to get a good turnout. Like, to me, those just aren't important things on the
Salute
schedule.
to Warriors is good because it
It's good. Yes,
benefits.
it's different. It's a charity event,
Right,
right?
yeah.
But like the 500
you
freeze
just
out.
mean the structure in general.
Yeah, it's like the 500
Yeah.
freeze out's going to get 3,000 people. It's going to be an annoyance and clog up the hallways. But like, first place is going to be 150K. Like, go play the Venetian.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I know. Like they have it's called the $600 Ultra Stack.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, Ultra Stack.
Yeah, so you get
And you look-
100,000 in chips and it's like 5-minute levels.
That's exactly what it is.
Right.
No, it's not. It's 60,000 chips, but it's 30-minute levels, 40 on day 2.
Sure.
But it's still super fast.
I really do appreciate how flexible they've been with the day 1, day 2 structures, like making day 1 faster, day 2 slower. I think that that's really conscientious of them as a whole. I'd like to see more 40-60 structure rather than 30-40. And again, like, this is echoing my point, like, with the smallest buy-ins, is that to me, like, and maybe I'm an old man wagging my fist at clouds, but like, there was certain prestige to playing a World Series event. Like, remember when we were coming up, like how big of a deal it was to even come out here?
Yeah.
Let alone play in a prelim. Like, just to play in a prelim was such a big deal. And it's like, to do so in a structure that's just like turbo-y
I have no.
and the cost of entry is so low, it's just kind of like, Are we pumped about that?
You're talking past me here, man.
Yeah, but are you pumped to play the 300 opener?
Last time I was in line, I left it.
Right. That's what I mean. Like,
but then again, I'm not the audience.
You kind of are. I mean, if I were your age looking at this schedule, I would plan on playing like 70 events.
70?
I mean, there's a lot of no limit.
How many are you going to play?
12.
Yeah, I hope you play more than 12. I'm going to be playing more than 12.
I'm going to play a lot. I have a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff, good stuff to play, but it doesn't mean you always, like allegiance-wise, have to play WSOP stuff.
There's a lot of...
Like the win's going to have good dailies or whatever. Like if there's a 300 or a win daily where first is 100K, I'm just going to go play the 1K.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
you made it to the round of 16, right? Heads up.
Round of 8.
Round of 8.
Yeah, we're going to try to be better this year. I really fucked up last year. It was very unfortunate.
Yeah. There's a lot of events that
I fucked up.
Are like, 1,500 or whatever that are 40-minute levels.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? I
like that. That's what I'm saying. I feel like that's the true bottom line is like the 1Ks and 1500s that are like 40-60 structure.
Right, yeah.
Like
where first is legitimately like potential life-changing dollars.
Yeah, like man, everybody like this used to be the bankroll builder. It's like you save up. Yes, you save up all year long for the World Series summer where it's like, okay, I have 20K put aside and I'm going to try to spin this to fucking 400. And then I'm going to sit my ass in Bobby's room or Ivy's room afterwards and you're going to know my name. Like literally that was in a large way my story. I don't know.
I mean, I think I would. I think if I'm like looking at this structure now, like or this schedule, I think I might forego some of the smaller events.
Yeah.
To play a bigger event, like instead of firing two bullets into like a 500, play a 1K that has a better structure.
That's what I said.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just.
He's coming around.
Well,
the tortoise is slow, but he gets there.
Yeah. The tortoise likes slow structures.
But yeah, you can have a slow structure and a 1K where
do you remember
first
the
is
marathon?
700K.
What?
Do you remember the marathon?
Oh yeah,
I loved the marathon.
No, you didn't.
I loved it.
Did you really?
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever played it.
I played 3 days and didn't cash.
What is this?
It was called the marathon. It's basically like the mini. Well, the mini main's a faster structure.
Mini main's 30-minute levels.
Yeah, but it was a 26. How many miles are in a marathon? 26.
26.3.
26.2.
Okay, yeah. So it was like
whatever
it was like a $2,620 buy-in representing a marathon, and the structure was like 90-minute levels or 2-hour levels, same as the main event. Something insane, and you started with like 500 big blinds.
Yeah.
No way.
Oh my god, it was incredible. I remember I bagged chip lead of it on day one. I had like, I don't know, like 400 or 500 big blinds going into day two.
400 million chips on day one.
We had lost like 15% of the field.
Yeah.
But I mean, back
how long did that tournament last?
It was like 5 or 6 days.
Yeah, 4 or 5 days.
I think it was 5. Yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently, WSOP had a 4 max for
yes,
like 1
I played.
year.
That was incredible. Also,
You know who won?
no, I just
Tim
remember,
Adams.
Oh, okay. I just remember my starting table was like me, Volpe, and another reg, and then a rando. But it was like such a gamble fest because it was like, this is when Stars was still like 2011.
Well, you have to play every
Yeah,
hand.
like 2012 or 13 or something.
I thought it was pre-Black Friday, but
Maybe
maybe
it was
not.
2011.
Yeah. But yeah, it was like really fun event.
We were talking about it yesterday. I was like, because we were just doing dumb WSOP trivia. It's like Legend of the Game, still really good now. Who won?
They should do
Canada.
They should do a 4 max, 3 blinds.
I'm really surprised that they haven't taken to any of the carnival games. Like, it's shocking to me that
they did. No, they have a double board bomb pot tournament.
No.
Yes.
How did I miss this?
Wait.
I'll play that.
I think it's Omaha.
I don't care.
PLO. I don't care either. I mean,
let me see.
I'll play that.
It is. Oh man, there's so many events. It might take me forever.
PLO
to find
has
it.
a mystery bounty this year. Yeah. Dylan made a tweet about it.
I don't care about PLO Mystery Bounty.
I know. I'm just mad.
But I do care about a double board bomb pot.
Find it, Turtle. Find it.
I mean, there's so many events.
How did I miss this? It's not in the featured events either. They have at the end. They have or at the bottom they have special landmark events. But this is not.
What does that mean?
This is not one. Like the championship events. So like 5K pot limit Omaha, 10K Omaha high low 8 or better. All the championship events basically. The 25K heads up, the high rollers, shit like that. But yeah, anyway, okay, so it does sound like they have the double war bomb pot, which sounds interesting to me. I don't know if I wish they would do more flip and goes or just get rid of it. I can't decide, but I'm in one camp or the other.
More or less?
More or not at all. Like, I feel like it has problems, but I also feel like I really enjoy the notion of just like high carding to be in the money. You know what I mean? You know what I wish it was? I wish it was that they just did the flip and go portion online. Like, just run a flip and go every single day online, and then have it like, you know, turn into a 10K event.
I mean, your
live.
issue with what they want to do is that they're taking a lot of staffing when they can just move it online.
I don't care about that. It's like, I'm never going to walk to the Paris or to Horseshoe and play a 1K flip and go. But if you make it easy for me to just load up 10K on WSOP and run flip and goes, like, I'm in.
Yeah.
Or at least have like online flights for it. You know what I mean? Like, I would be in for that because it's always so small. I feel like it only gets like 120K to first for a 1K, which is like incredibly small.
It is very small.
Yeah,
yes.
maybe it gets like what, 200 people, something like that. Maybe less, 180 people, 150 people, something along those lines.
Right.
Yeah, I can't find it, but I know I saw it. I know I didn't dream it.
Well, he might have.
He saw source.
Maybe I did
source.
dream it.
He made it up.
Source. I made it up. I might have made it up.
Wow.
I don't see it
he
on
fucking
here.
made it up.
I don't see
he
it
got
on
you
here.
so excited
You know
for
what
nothing.
I saw it on the poker.org article.
This is
I
what it
believe.
is. It's mixed. This is actually great. I'm fucking in for this.
You found it?
It's a mixed no limit hold'em, pot limit Omaha double board bomb pot.
There you go.
This sounds dope as fuck.
There you go.
It's a
What's the
$1,500
buy-in?
event.
Yeah, it's 1,500.
1,500.
Yeah.
Knew it didn't.
2 re-entries, 40-minute levels day 1, 60-minute levels day 2. What's unclear to me is if the hold'em part is double board bomb pot. It just says mixed no limit hold'em, semicolon,
I think
pot
there's
limit Omaha double board bomb pot.
Then yes, it's going to be double board for both, I think.
It should be.
They're going to mix the games.
It should be, because if it's not, the hold'em is going to be irrelevant.
Yeah.
Like, the Omaha will play so much fucking bigger if you have to play like normal
does
no
this-
limit hold'em and fold.
This means every single hand is a double board bomb
Yeah.
pot?
That's so sick.
There might not be a day 2. It's a 2-day event.
Yeah, but there's going to be a lot of splitting pots.
Yeah, that's true.
Wow,
That is
final
true.
table ICM is going to be sick, huh?
That is true.
I'm excited.
You going to run some Sims for that?
No, I'm just going to try to brain solve it. As the theorist,
there
I
are no
am.
Sims for that.
Yeah. That's
Everybody
true.
has to play a pot.
All right.
Mhm.
Let's
Wow, that's exciting.
let's,
Holy hell.
let's wrap it. I got to blow my nose. All right, that's going to do it for us here today. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. Don't forget that we do have the MTT Academy coming up at the end of May. If you guys are interested in that, go ahead and hit hashtag Academy in the chat, or go to solveforwhy.io. Sorry, academy.solveforwhy.io. We're also running a Cash Academy just prior to that. And don't forget that we are running a Dealer Academy too if you're considering trying out for the WSOP or you're looking for placement elsewhere. We have a lot of connections around town, so we do have high expectations that we'll be able to place anybody who signs up should they pass the course. You can find that as well at academy.solveforwhy.io. Click in the banner above for the Dealer Academy and get all the details that you need. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We're going to be back again Monday. Have a great weekend, everyone. We'll see you all then.
Peace.
Peace.